Good evening and welcome to Unity Books. We are delighted to be hosting the launch of Catherine Munro's Spilt Milk Yoga.
Well, thank you, Linda. I just want to recognise my special guest here tonight. It's my mum. And I'll take a breath. Thanks for having me. Linda, when I wrote that email to you, I had a 5-year-old, I think, at school, or 6-year-old, and Huia, my youngest, was in her one morning of care in the week, and I thought, this is my opportunity. This one morning while she's at play centre is the morning I'm going to get everything done. I'm going to do some real work. And I sat down and I heard an interview that you were doing, I think, with somebody who was speaking about paid motherhood. So I felt very stirred up by that interview and blasted that email. And actually, you didn't throw it straight in the bin, because I got a reply almost immediately that afternoon. I got a reply from Linda's program saying, we're really interested in what you have to say. And we want you on the program tomorrow morning. Would you be happy to come on? Of course, I was thrilled and a little overwhelmed, but also really amazed at the immediacy of the response. And that what I had kind of blurted out, groping in the dark to find the words, had resonated with somebody so much that they wanted to air that conversation. So actually overnight something happened, like a volcano exploded and planes couldn't fly. So motherhood went on the back burner while that took the main seat in the news. And but motherhood rolls on as it does. And 7 years later, when I decided to start writing the book that I wish I had had when I became a mother, I dug that email out of my inbox, and this was part of what you wrote here. So you've stolen the chapter I was going to read tonight, which is great. Linda's already read it for me, pretty much. It found its way into the book, and I'll read you just a little more. So this is part of that spilt milk that I experienced. And the full title of the book, really long subtitle, Spilt Milk Yoga, a guided self-inquiry to finding your own wisdom, joy and purpose through motherhood. So we'll get back to the self-inquiry bit because that's important. So this is the spilt milk part. So I'm talking about, I am working really hard here as a mother and feeling undervalued. All I feel at the end of the day is sleep deprived, tired of looking after others, and conscious of how little I have achieved. I live in an achievement culture. In other circumstances, work of this quality would gain me a raise or a promotion. At the very least, I'd be paid. But what value does 5 years of full-time mothering add to my CV? Mothering is untrained, invisible, crucial, ignored, disruptive. It is at once so important and so nebulous. I am caught in a social conflict. Is mothering the most important social investment I could ever make, or the least productive of occupations? It's hard to feel the value of my efforts and time. So that's the spilt milk part. And then what I've worked with in the book is providing some kind of practice, which is the yoga that fits alongside that for mothers grappling with these questions. And here's a little bit on that: value your choice. All mothers are working, let's get that clear for a start. Whether you choose to work at home full-time with the important task of raising your children, or work elsewhere, you are working. There is no right way to reconcile career, home and motherhood. There is only what is right for you. How you think and feel about your circumstances and choices will make a difference to how you think and feel about yourself as a mother. Reflecting on the heart of your choices will help you toward finding your balance. The practice here is valuing your choice. Being conscious of what choices you are making and why creates alignment between your choices and what matters to you. To be conscious and responsible for your choices paves the journey to self-knowledge. And then there's a third part in each of the chapters, which is the self-inquiry. And self-inquiry is the key practice in spilt milk yoga, and indeed in yoga and many other traditions. So some of the questions here around valuing your choice: What choices have you made about how you are doing motherhood? Why did you make these choices? What do you value most about what comes from these choices? What do you find challenging that comes from these choices? What would you like to adjust in how you are doing the job of motherhood? Choose one thing. If you made one small step toward this today, what would it be? And there's space to write and think. And actually, Christian was chuckling, my husband was chuckling before, and he said, I'm just replacing the word mother with the word CEO. And just to finish, I want to tell you a story about selling the first book that I've ever sold in Australia on Sunday. And I was in an Uber on the way to Sydney Airport, and Mark, the Uber driver, got chatting with Christian, my husband, and said, so what do you guys do? And Christian introduced his work and then introduced me. He said, oh, and Catherine's just written a book about the spiritual journey of motherhood. And I squirmed a little bit because that's not quite how I would describe the book, especially to this ochre bloke driving the Uber. But he was instantly curious, and he said, oh, so tell me more about that. So I told him more, and then he said, that sounds like that'd be the perfect gift for my wife. Where can I get a copy? And I said, actually, I've got one in my handbag. They're not actually kind of officially on sale until tomorrow, but you could buy this one if you want. And he immediately detoured the Uber to the nearest ATM, drew out cash, and while I signed it for his wife, the transaction was made. And thank you. But the really great bit is the next morning, I got this message. Thank you, Catherine. My hubby, Mark, Mr. Uber, just presented me with your book. You have totally nailed it. I have been a mum since I was 21, 3 teenagers later, and I've never read anything that connected the busy and the beautiful struggle of motherhood, feeling like you have lost your way on the journey, and yet continually evolving to cope with the ever-changing situation. Crying over the spilt expressed milk brought back so many memories, all the spilt milk over all the years. I look forward to using my book to give me light. Many blessings, Renata. Isn't that great? Yeah. So I thought this is just what I wish for Spilt Milk Yoga, and it was my intention in writing this book to connect mothers to self and others in valuing their own process and journey through motherhood. Many mothers want to have this conversation, but revealing ourselves and our vulnerability in such an area of judgment and conflict is hard. So I want to thank Christian and Mr. Uber Mark for joining the dots, for joining me and Renata in our conversation. And it's a reminder to me that I need to keep being brave and reaching out to have this conversation. So the book is part of the conversation, and then there's another component to this conversation, which is the work that I'm going to start piloting with mothers alongside the book. So I just want to do a little thing now. Just hands up if you are a mother. Great. I'm really curious about what percentage of New Zealanders are mothers, actually, and I can't find it anywhere. Hands up if you are close to somebody who's a mother. Good. Now, hands up if you have or have ever had a mother. So that's everybody. Great. Well, I'd like to invite you to help join the dots to foreground conversation about the challenges and the value of contemporary motherhood. So while we're grappling with ourselves, with our judgment, isolation and career death, we are supported by others as CEOs of human worth, value, purpose and connection. I believe motherhood is at the heart of our social health. So talk to mothers, with mothers, about the value of their work, and acknowledge the challenges and the potent politics of self inherent in the motherhood journey. Thank you for coming.